My name is Colin Webb, and I'm a filmmaker, actor, and writer. It started off as a hobby in my spare time, just going around mainly with pictures, but as time went on, a story's being made, and so from that it just kind of developed, and I thought, well, why not make a film instead? It started off just on my phone at first, and then I got a camera, and then everywhere we went, I'd take it with me, and we'd always document and take pictures, and that's pretty much how it started. I like to create in coffee shops or bars. If I'm just on my own in silence, then I will literally struggle. But I like when there's a bit of activity around. The part of the creative process I like the most would probably be the early stages, because you got the idea and you're thinking, how can I do this? And then you put out a series of steps with plans. It gets your brain working. It's a chance to really assess the possibilities that you have. Sometimes you'll find, oh, I'd love to do this, but that's not gonna work. So it's about finding a way around it. The way that I come up with my characters is normally through interactions with people. So a lot of the time, they are based on people that already exist. But I normally tend to exaggerate on certain personalities that they may have. Like someone that's a bit comedic, I'll exaggerate that more. Someone that's a bit grumpy, they're gonna be quite grumpy, so yeah. The thing that inspires me most is ordinary life, everyday things really, just people interactions, life events, and people's stories. I love to explore happy stories, but happiness often does exist along with sadness, but overall, I like a nice, light, comedic, fun tone. It feels very safe. It's a good medium for people to distract themselves with. They're having a bad day, maybe they could just, put on something nice, just unwind. There's loads of people that inspire me creatively, but the biggest was actually my own dad. He's no longer with us, sadly, but he was always an artist at heart. He was into painting and drawing, and whenever he was having a bad day, he would just sort of crack on with that, and I always liked that about him. So as an independent filmmaker, you start with relatively nothing. You've got to build up your resources. That's been the biggest challenge, because you can only do so much on a shoestring budget. When you do manage to make something out of it, it does feel quite rewarding, and you do tend to be a bit more creative when you've got less. The process of putting together a team can be hit and miss. You do find yourself working with a variety of people. Some will be a bit more interested than others. I have been in a situation where I have worked with people for quite a number of months, and then unfortunately, for one reason or another, the project will fall through. So yeah, it can be a risk at times, but it's also a life lesson as well. Because what I often find is that it's never just solely on one person, it's normally a combination of factors. The best thing you can take from that is probably, how can I do better? If that makes sense. How I deal with that is by being patient, by try and exercise understanding, and also don't worry about how you feel, focus on a solution. So for me, my writing process generally is, if I have an idea, I'll jot down the idea on a notepad, and then I'll jot down specific notes and key things about it. What I will then do is attempt to just go into it really, just write a script, the first draft, and then after that, I will have to read through it, really dissect it, cherry pick it, and then I would leave it for a while, and then we'd go through it again, and then I'd get a second opinion. In terms of how long it takes, it varies. Honestly, there are times where I've worked for months and months and still not been happy, and then there are times where it can come like a lightning strike. I remember one time it was and I was just literally there typing, and it just, in about 2 hours, the whole thing was fully done, top to bottom, 30 pages, and I was like, damn. My dream would be to have made something that's somewhat successful on a streaming platform and have people talk about it and enjoy it. Anywhere really, Netflix, Hulu, Disney, whatever really. I have thought about voicing for animation. I'd like to. I think you can have an interest in loads of different things, but obviously for me, it's not so much my priority, but if the opportunity came, yes, I'd definitely do it, yeah. Mainstream recognition is something that's quite important, because with recognition comes opportunities. and with opportunities, you know, could potentially come success. So yeah, I do think it is quite important. There have been times where I thought about giving up because, you know, you find yourself working on a project, it doesn't go to plan, you think, okay, what's plan B? And then plan B doesn't go to plan, and then C, and then suddenly 9 months turns into 18 months, and it's just a bit like, but it takes a lot for me to just fully abandon a project because I don't believe in it. There has been times where, you know, sometimes you have to for contextual reasons. Generally, I do try to see it through to the end, at least. The advice I would give is be patient, be kind, and work hard. Be prepared to wait a while. You don't want to rush these things. I think people are receptive to collaboration because they understand it takes a few hands to actually build it from the ground up. But I also think it kind of depends on where you are with things, really. Like, if you're someone that has been somewhat successful, you tend to be more selective of who you choose to collaborate with, which, for whatever reason, they'd rather work with people they know can deliver rather than take a chance, which is a shame because, you know, sometimes taking a chance opens opportunities, but that's generally how it works. People can be hesitant to give people a chance. It could be for a number of reasons. It could be that it might even be from like things like prejudice. Maybe they might look at this person and think, oh no, maybe not. Or it could be that the content that they're making doesn't align with what they want to make. For example, I've worked with some religious people who only would want to work on things which are more akin to praising God or something in that light. I think it also could be down to things like, if they're already somewhat established, they've got the cream of the crop. So, you know, they are gonna want to pick the best. They think, well, why take a chance? Why fix what's broken? Which is a shame because, you know, people generally do improve over time. I think being open to new people, new ideas, it does open a lot of avenues, but whatever decision you make, there is going to be pros and cons with it. Even, for example, keeping with the, I say elite, then you could find yourself stuck in a rhythm. Or this other person might be even better, but, you know, you chose not to take the opportunity. I think with the right collaboration, I'd be able to hear alternative views on things. For example, like, I've recently started working with a lot more varied cinematographers. They bring certain things to the table, which I wouldn't even have thought of. There's one person I was working with and we was in a forest and he had this idea of filming these two characters who are at odds with each other, but there's a tree between them and it said it's symbolic. It's like the line that separates them. And I was like, oh, I didn't even think of that. That's quite good. My dream project would be to make a series of compelling characters, people that we want to know how they're doing, how it progresses. In terms of with who, I'm open to anyone really. I'd say I'm quite open to giving people a chance. So anyone who's passionate. With Blkuzz, it's great because it's an opportunity for so many people to network from various different creative fields, because, you know, you often find that things overlap and then people are like, you know, often like, oh, what am I gonna do? Like, I need this. And then if you look on Blkuzz, it's like, oh, okay. For example, Esther, Jungle Queen, who's a lovely painter and artist. But if I ever needed like something with a series of paintings, I could be like, hey Esther, would you be interested in maybe this? So I feel like for that reason, Blkuzz is good. And it's also good because it's like a community. People also check in and like see how people are doing as well. It's not just clinical, it's also comforting. I would like people to take, if they were to view my work, I'd like them to take away some thoughts and meaning. I would like to be remembered as someone who was okay to work with and also who made compelling work. Yeah, work that stays with people. And also, I'd like to be remembered for being a nice person, pleasant, and hardworking. What I'm working on next, well, I'm currently working on a series, like helping people make podcasts and also with their business branding and whatnot. Just people who maybe are not really from the tech savvy background, just trying to help them excel in that. That's my next thing I'm working on.
Yeah.
Done? Okay, cool. Thank you.